Three, two, one. Love Talk Radio.
Hey, this is great. Now, if you've read about this episode, you know that I have laid out this great big blast of news. So this is the influencers on Blog Talk Radio. And this has been the K factor, where K equals kindness and the factors are all the things that lead to it. However, I have realized that I have recruited these people to share the platform with me to do the shows, and they are influencers. So we are called the influencers. And this is on the new platform of Partners in Excellence Media. I'm about to be a mogul. And guess who's in the house with me? It's Jamie Allman. Welcome, Jamie
Hi there,
Allman.
how are you? I'm so glad to be an influencer instead of like a bad influencer. You know what I mean? I'm so happy.
Yeah, I've always thought of you as one of the good guys. So I don't understand any of the cockapoo that goes around.
I know, no, I am. I'm one of the good guys. I'll go ahead and cop to that.
Good, exactly.
It's
So
an honor to be with you.
I am thrilled. So this is Deb Carlin, Dr. Deb Carlin, welcoming my new co-host, Mr. Jamie Allman.
Oh, how fun! I love it.
I do too. So Jamie, I've been an admirer of yours. I actually, when I called up Jamie and I said, you got to do this with me. This is really exciting. We kind of know each other. And I had to confess to him, I'm sort of like a groupie. I mean, I'm a fan. I've been watching you and listening to you. You're raucous and you're exquisite at what you do.
Well, I have a ton of fun doing it. It's a passion of mine. That's why, I can get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every day with a smile on my face and with energy. I barely need any coffee at all. But it also means that I also kind of don't go to bed because I prepare for the show, my radio show every night, and I'm ready to go. Once my preparation is done and I've got everything down, things that I want to talk about, things that I want to address, I'm like, well, I don't want to go to bed now. I'm ready to go. I mean, come on. So it's really such a joy. And you know what? More than anything else, it's a privilege. I always tell people that. And I take it very seriously. As much fun as I have on the radio and everything else, and when I was in TV, I never forget what a privilege it is to be able to have the forum, to be able to have the microphone, to be able to have that ability to talk to people and give people my opinion and take their opinions as well. And so I do not take it lightly. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No, you are a drop dead professional, consummate professional. Everything that you do is just, your voice on the radio, your name recognition, your perspective. We're so aligned on our perspectives. And so, you know what, Jamie, here's the thing. This is our debut on this show. Tell people, who the heck are you and how did you walk into this radio space in the first place?
Well, a long time ago, it was 18 years ago, I had been a television reporter starting in 1986. I was in radio since 1985. So the minute I graduated from college, I got a job out of radio, and I was covering the city and state governments and county governments there in Dane County in Madison, Wisconsin. Back in the day when we had, these little rubber couplers, and you'd call your report in and you had to you'd wrap the rubber thing around the receiver. That's how you played all your little sound bites and that kind of stuff. And so those were the days. So I started in radio, and then eventually, because I used to, when I did radio and when I did the stories, it didn't matter what kind of story it was, I introduced the use of natural sound. Like no one had ever heard that before in the radio report. So what I would do, like, let's say I covered a fire, I would go ahead and do the story. But of course, before that, I would just run the microphone and get some sounds of the fire engines or some sound of this and sound of that. And so when I did my reports, I would actually do the reports with natural sound behind them. So there was some ambient sound. It was kind of crazy. It's weird that shouldn't be such a novel idea, but it was at the time.
Yeah.
And so that caught the attention of a TV guy who was in town,
Yeah.
who said that I ought to be doing television with my appreciation for the sound and the whole story and the ambiance of the story and everything else. So I got hired in TV right after that in '86, and then in 1989 got a job down here in St. Louis at KMOV TV, and I was there for 14 years. I've won 15 Emmys, regional Emmys in TV.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I don't like to brag, but I will say that, you know, for investigative reporting and political reporting and everything else. So in 14 years, I got 15 Emmys in TV. I like that idea, but
Yeah.
it was because of my passion for it.
Yeah.
And then overlapping that, so was then radio. So I got a job in radio in about 2002.
Yeah.
So for a time there, I was doing both television and radio
Oh, neat.
at the same time. So I
Yeah.
was waking up in the morning, doing a morning show, and then going into work and doing television.
Oh, wow.
Then one crazy year, 2004, I decided to give up both because I had an opportunity. I was asked to go and work for the Archbishop of St. Louis.
I remember that, and I
Yeah.
thought, what has he done?
I know. Well, you know, as I've said
Why?
before, I tell everybody that sometimes, you know, when people have a midlife crisis, they buy a Camaro or something. And it just so happens that I went to work for a controversial archbishop in St. Louis. Yeah, so, but I really enjoyed it. It was a great, it made for a really great experience. It wasn't always such a positive experience. I was there for about 9 months. And finally, just because it was a different environment than I thought I was hired to do, I went ahead and left, and all on good terms and everything
Yeah.
else. And then shed television along the way and just went back to radio.
Yeah.
And so as of 2005, I was back on the radio, and I called it Common Sense Radio. It wasn't
Yeah.
Republican radio. It was just Common Sense Radio.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, and everybody knows that I'm a conservative at heart. I have a lot of different proclivities, mostly libertarian. So, for instance, I'm against the death penalty. You know, I'm pro-life. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I don't have a problem at all with gay marriage or gay adoption or things like that. It's just common sense type of things that I approach. So that has been the vibe ever since 2005.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I had a few hiccups along the way, including in 2018, because of a complete and total misdiagnosed tweet. But in the end, I'm here. I do a show called Radio Free Allman every morning. And I'm on YouTube, and I have my app, and I've got Facebook and everything else. And we're all just one big happy family. In spite of, by the way, some of the things that have been going on and elections and things like that. So other than that, but you know what? I think that one of the things that separate some conservatives from others, and I think you would say the same thing.
Yeah.
We call ourselves joyful warriors, where we're not prone to be attack dogs. We're not prone to be negative. I think that's what distinguishes, well, Americans from other people as well, is that we always try to have a smile on our face, and we always try to be dignified and have fun along the way and be informed and be as smart as we possibly can be. And so that's kind of been my career. That's what I've been doing. I have a very valuable audience in terms of their loyalty.
Oh, yeah, you do.
But it's more than transactional to me. We actually have a relationship, which I love, because it's almost like having just one big family.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love about it.
That community. Well, you know what, Jamie? That's exactly why I took Blog Talk Radio. I started out here about a decade ago doing the K Factor, all about kindness, the year that my mom passed away. And it was, you know, it was really therapeutic. I was talking about kindness because she was incredibly kind. So was my dad. And I was known for, I had some guy call me up from a business magazine article, and he said, you know, I'm reading about you and the way that you do kindness, and I'm thinking I wanted to interview you. And so we started talking. And then he says to me, So, you know, I'm with WGN. I'm up in Chicago. I've got this, that, and the other thing, and I want you to come on and do this. And I was like, how much money do you want? It turned out he was a good guy. I worked with him for a while, and then I got invited over to Blog Talk Radio, and I thought the opportunity on Blog Talk Radio is huge. At the time, it was like 12 million unique visitors a month to that platform. And I thought, okay, well, let's see what we can do here. So I did the show for a few years, and he had a real engineer, and he had this groovy experience with it. And then, you know, got sort of pulled in different directions and did my work as a doctor of psychology and all that, holistic practitioner kind of deal. And then really the last couple of years, I started gravitating back towards it, thinking there's so much messaging that needs to be done. There's so much that America and the world needs to hear. America being my first love. But, you know, this year, 2020, as I'm bouncing around my home and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what day of the week is it? And like, where are all my people? I can't see my people. I need to be back on Blog Talk Radio. Then I come in here and I'm doing the audio, and I thought, I want to see people. So I decided to dovetail it with Zoom and then upload it to YouTube and have there be a video component to it. Because what's the most popular and powerful social media channel? It's YouTube, right?
Yeah.
So I started doing that, Jamie. Our numbers went through the roof. I mean, instead of hovering around 700,000 results on Google, you know, it's like 2 million, 4 million. And this is happening with me and my brands, and then everybody who I co-host with. And so I thought, you know what? Like you, I am a conservative, but you know, when you and I were growing up, and, you know, I grew up in Chicago, very democratic town, Mayor Daley. When he died, I said, excuse me, that can't be. I mean, he's the emperor. What do you mean he died? That Mayor Daley's never going to die. He's like a god. And so anyway, democratic meant something different. It was about a machine that worked. The other thing that it was, when we talked about liberal, it was about open-mindedness.
Yeah.
So I resist the labels to a certain degree because, you know, it's so divisive these days. You know, like if you're a Republican, you better watch out. Somebody might beat you up.
Yep.
But if you're a Democrat, you know, like everybody hates you if they're you know, so-called Republican. I'm thinking, wait a second. It's red, white, and blue, the flag. It's not red and blue. It's red, white, and blue.
Right.
And I never understood this side of the aisle conversation. It wasn't that way when I was growing up. And you want to know what I feel terrible about right now? I'm thinking to myself, what has happened to my country while I wasn't paying attention?
Right. Right.
I was busy doing all these things. Now I turn on the news. That's why this is the news. Because it's not about one particular demographic matters. It's about your life matters, our lives matter, our freedoms matter, our well-being matters. And I see things just being stripped away and threatened, including people. And I'm thinking, wait a second, you're talking about common sense, not so common.
Yeah. Well, we have a situation now where as long as you are passionate about something or you're angry enough about something, anything goes. You can say whatever you want to whomever. I think the whole COVID-19 panic has created a little bit of that too, where people just can't learn. And listen, this is coming from a person who has the freedom to speak all the time. But I'm also not one of those people who believes that an athlete or an entertainer should keep their mouth shut. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about this judgmental, finger wagging, pearl clutching, finger wagging that goes on everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, those stories heading up into Thanksgiving were all so interesting because there were stories in the New York Times and others that, you know, it's not enough just to have an election. We have to shame people who supported Donald Trump, for instance. Even your family, you need to go back home and you need to shame them. It's not enough just to have differences of opinion anymore. You need to shame people for their opinions. Now, I would never even consider in a million years. I mean, I'm, for instance, the only conservative. I'm the youngest of 6. Yeah. I'm the only conservative in my family, you know. But I would never consider in a million years going up to one of my family members or even friends of mine who might be liberal, whatever, and challenging them on their core, challenging them on their morality or their values or their this or their that. Because maybe it's a generational thing, but I'm not trying to advocate some kind of polite society where no one says everything and everything's bottled up. But
Right.
it's gotten really weird lately,
It
especially
has.
people in their everyday interactions now.
Yes.
You can't see anybody's faces anymore.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Muffled. Muffled.
yeah, and it's been so nerve wracking. I've never been the kind of person that goes into an elevator. You know how what people do even before COVID-19.
Yeah.
People go into elevators, and the minute they go into an elevator, instead of saying, "Hey, how are you?" or "How's your day going?" or whatever, they go right to their phones.
Yeah.
They can't stand the thought of interacting with anybody, so they're just pretending they're doing something on their phone. So but I've never been that way. But now everybody has been so isolated. They're so isolated not only in their ideas, but they're isolated in their behaviors as well, and it's been kind of crazy.
It is crazy. The thing that really is so disturbing to me about what's going on this year, Jamie, is that every single relationship has been challenged. People are tiptoeing around one another. Well, what do you think about this? And like we're feeling each other out. It was refreshing to talk to you because we got on the phone and we were just a buzz with alignment. And then, I actually I was a little nervous over the summer about talking about things. And then I just thought, you know what? Excuse me. This is my life. This is my United States of America. I believe that everyone has opportunity here. We've all witnessed it, and everybody can have their position. But come on, if anybody really wants to make it in America, they can make it in America.
Oh yeah,
And
and
we
you,
have
you have
people who, yeah, we have people who, they're like, are dying to get in here. They're taking a cardboard box across from Cuba to get here and making it. It's astonishing. So here's the thing that's really troublesome. This just hurts my heart. I have relationships that have just fractured over this.
mhm, mhm. Over the
And
election and COVID-19 or both.
both.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, I've had people who I love showing up on my social media, particularly on Facebook, and saying, people get what they deserve. If you're an anti-masker, it's like, what, what? And then, oh, well, I believe in the science. Excuse me, science is not a belief system. It's not a faith. Science is hard, cold facts and evidence. And I don't know what it means when you can go to a restaurant until 10 o'clock at night, but then what? The virus comes out like a maniac at 10:01?
Or you could go to a grocery store, and you can't go to a restaurant. Like in here in St. Louis County, you can't even dine in, but you can go to a grocery store which has people turning over
Yeah,
constantly, in and out, in and out. They're busier than even a restaurant, and yet they're closed down. I think we've had a real drop in the trust level here with our authorities. And you mentioned science there. Well, one of the things about science is we have scientists, but we don't elect scientists to lead. We consult scientists, and there's a reason why we don't elect scientists, or for that matter, even economists, when it comes to leading 330 million people.
Yeah.
We elect a leader who has to assess all those factors from these supposed experts. Although I got to tell you, I still don't know. Nobody ever asked the question. Okay, so why is it 6 feet again? What's the
Yeah,
why is it 7,
right.
or why isn't it 4? And
Yeah.
they can never tell you why.
Right.
So we just are crazy because we've actually become, which is kind of crazy, a nation of sheep.
Yes.
And I saw John Kasich the other day on TV talking about how these politicians are they are the flock is scattered, and it's funny because John Kasich was a governor and a congressman, and suddenly it's revealed that he thinks that politicians are shepherds and that the citizenry are sheep.
Oh my God.
I'm like, Oh, I never heard that apply to the political structure. We're not sheep. We're citizens. We have to stand up for our freedoms and our rights and our independence, our sovereignty.
Right.
And that's been the problem lately. I think what's happened is we have trusted so much
Yep.
in the so-called authorities and institutions, and now suddenly they're turning their backs on us on a variety of different levels, and we're actually being led around by people whose lack of knowledge has actually replaced knowledge.
Yeah.
Like nobody knows anything about this virus. I don't care whether you're the top scientist in the world. You can't. You have to admit you still don't really know anything about this thing. If you did, we would have resolved it by now anyway. And if masks worked, we wouldn't have everybody wearing them at record levels and COVID-19 running around at record levels. So these people just don't know anything. So in their lack of knowledge, they take actions that they don't have to ever defend. So they'll shut this down, they'll shut a church down. How in America you could ever have a society where you allow a politician or a scientist for that matter, anybody, to shut down one of the hallmarks of our First Amendment, which is freedom of assembly, freedom of worship, everything else. How anybody could put up with that in America is beyond me. I think we've gone soft on those kinds of things, those matters. I don't know why, but society has changed a little bit. And so we've become a society where we all demand absolute safety, security, and a bubble around us at all times, even if it means imprisoning people.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
You know, one of the things that early on, if you remember, it was about a mask. And then it was about social distancing. And the social distance was 3 feet. And I'm thinking, why 3 feet? And then I thought, okay, well, around the world, if you look at interpersonal space, so as a doctor of psychology, this has been a big thing for me, social psychology. And it's like every country has got their different range, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a pretty good range of interpersonal space here in America. A lot tighter in Japan because it's tight quarters, right? But I'm looking at this and then I see on YouTube and I'm thinking, oh no, we're really headed for something disastrous here. They're doing practice sneezes with cameras, seeing how far does your spew go on a sneeze. And it's like, it's not 3 feet, it's 6 to 8 feet. And I thought, oh my gosh, now we're going to be distanced further. Now, here's the cool part. The cool part about 2020, and there's always a silver lining opportunistically, is that what we can say is we're a little bit more polite. Like now we've been shown on TV how to wash our hands, right? I thought we learned that when we were from like 3 years on by mom, but okay, we have to teach the nation. Don't pick your nose and then touch people, you know, don't cough and then shake hands. But this face diaper, excuse me, it's a face diaper. You wear a mask. People are wearing the same filthy mask time after time after time and not understanding you're breathing out oxygen, breathing in carbon dioxide. This is not healthy. I'm waiting for the litigation to start where people are getting sick from the mask, you know, like they did from spraying Roundup.
Yeah.
Because
right.
right? You know it's going to happen. But the worst part of it is when you're out, there are people who are alone in their car. They're wearing their mask.
Oh yeah, that's a very, very depressing sight. That one sight.
Yes, people are walking out in the park and wearing a mask. They're on the beach, they're wearing a mask. They're riding their bicycle, and I'm thinking, you're breathing in heavily, exercising, and you're poisoning yourself.
Right.
What are you doing? Then you go into the grocery store, and you know, if you've got your mask, I can't breathe with it over my nose. And I'm not coughing. It's for when you're coughing.
Right.
I'm not coughing, and I'm walking around there. People are like ready to shoot me or stab me with a pickle or something.
Yeah.
You know, your mask has to be up over your nose. I just look at them and go, yeah, and walk away. But you know, there's like these guardians, like these monitors all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, if we don't calm this the hell down, and if we don't get all this stuff straight, I mean, people have really gotten violent.
Yeah, no, you know about the so-called well, they call it the Nextdoor app. You know what that is? So the
I
next
do. You can snitch on your
yeah,
neighbors.
the Nextdoor app used to be something where people would use it to give people crime alerts or help their fellow neighbor. You know, take care of maybe if there's maybe a problem in the neighborhood or a
Right.
traffic jam someplace, whatever. And it turned into one big snitch factory. It turned into one big place where everybody went and ratted out their neighbors or ratted out a playground that happened to be not have tape around the merry-go-round. It's like, oh Lord, what have we turned people into?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And
It is,
hopefully that's going to
it is
change.
so crazy. It is so disturbing. I mean, I've been watching families get ripped apart, groups of friends get ripped apart. I had a friend, I have friends who told me that they would come visit me from, another location, but only if I would quarantine for 2 weeks before they got here. Like, what are you talking about? For what?
No,
I
no.
mean, do you want me to have the whole place Lysol wiped down too? Because the point is, it doesn't make any sense. But emotionally, and this really bothers me, people don't understand what comorbidity means. Comorbidity means those diseases that you already have that are killing you.
Right,
You
right.
know, I mean, you have diabetes, it's killing you. Got that along with cardiovascular disease, those things are killing you.
Problems, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you better get them rectified. You know what? Here's the thing, we could have used all of 2020 if the media and the government was really on our side, not as our shepherds, but as the people who work for us, right? Isn't that the model? They work for us.
Right, exactly. Yes.
They really could have been saying, you know what, we've got all these holistic practitioners in our culture. We've got all these brilliant minds about how we can boost our immune systems and how we can learn these new practices while we're at home, how we can shop online and get our groceries delivered to us if we think it's not safe. I mean, excuse me, I don't want the grocery stores shut down, but the grocery stores are the most touched place
Oh yeah, yeah.
of any.
Right. And
Who's picking up the food?
yeah, yeah. Well, and also, Doctor, I think longer term, I'm really concerned about what we are doing to our children because the modeling for children right now through not only society, through not only the schools, through not only the politicians, and not only the news media,
Yeah.
to me has been terrible. Children really, in the end, more important than anything, need a sense of security. They need a
Yes.
sense of reliability.
Yes.
When adults around them are panicking,
Yep.
are squirting things on their hands all the time, these
Right.
hand sanitizers, and making them wear masks,
Yeah.
or even making them learn through a computer instead of
Yep.
in a classroom,
Yep.
shutting down their sports.
Yep.
They're watching other people fight. They're watching their families torn apart sometimes by fighting. They're not seeing people. They're not interacting with individuals. In some cases, their churches, they've seen their churches shut down or their schools or whatever. And to me, this is setting a really poor example for kids. I couldn't tell you exactly what they're learning in terms of culturally what they're learning, whatever else, but they're seeing a society that has been ill-equipped to deal with stress and chaos. And so what they do is they either retreat or they shut down or they get angry, or they, in some cases with the people they don't like getting elected in office, they'll hit the streets and start fires, and or they'll loot, or they'll do that. So it's been 1 year where I think we've really set a very poor example for our children more than anything else. And they're
Absolutely.
watching us. They're watching us.
Yep. Well, there's a book written back in the 50s called Children Learn What They Live. It started out as a poem by Dorothy Law Nolte, and it's beautiful. And now it's a beautiful book. And it really tells you when children grow up with this, they end up like this. And it's formulaic. I have said since a year ago, it was last December when we started hearing about the Wuhan virus. and people standing in their apartment buildings. Remember on the news in China, opening their windows, screaming, "I'm okay. Are
Yeah.
you okay?"
Yeah.
And trying to play ball back and forth between their windows. Well, I started looking at that and I started getting extremely uncomfortable in December. And then by January, what I started saying and writing about was, it's not the germ that I'm afraid of, it's the social psychology, the interaction of the environment with the people, and the people really having this fear factor that's going to spread like wildfire, like nothing before. You know, the reality of the ways in which this has been dealt with has been so evil and mean spirited. And, you know, to turn on our president at a time of massive stress when he's doing everything, you know, shut down travel from China, and people are calling him xenophobic and all this other stuff. Wait a second. If we know we have an infected region, don't we owe it to ourselves and to them for some containment? That was one part of containment. But when you're talking about the kids, here was one of the worst things that I saw was two things. One, when I saw teachers on news channels on television with the 360 owl camera, and the school is saying, "Oh, this is so wonderful. We've got this new technology." And the teacher is in the room, and all the school desks are spaced apart. There's no kids in there, and they're taped apart. Okay. And then the teacher gets on the camera to teach her students. She's wearing a huge black mask over her face. And I'm thinking, who are you masking
Yeah.
against? Are the children supposed to be at home masked? This is terrible. The children need to learn nonverbal behavior, and they need to be able to see your whole face. And by the way, facial recognition in human development is essential. An infant needs to be looking in your eyes and watching all your facial gestures, seeing your breathing and breathing with you and being held. I saw footage. It's my second really big thing. This is criminal. I saw footage in hospital nurseries, in the nursery, the babies, the newborn infants, masked.
On a baby?
And I'm thinking, this is insanity gone over the top,
Wow. Yeah.
over the top. Now
Yeah.
you take that and you combine that with people go in the hospital, no visitors. People are in places for elderly, call it whatever you want. They're all nursing homes. They're called the last stop. And it's horrible. Why it is we don't all keep our families home with us, I'll never understand, because I did with my mom and dad. But people have all kinds of reasons for it. The idea of keeping our generations together has been very appealing to me. To think that we have people on the other side of a glass wall, and we could go up and touch the glass, and then they have these like plastic things and you can hug through the plastic. How many people, they're not dying of the coronavirus, they're dying of heartbreak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, my mom is 92 years old. God love her. And
ah,
you know, and she's doing fine with the help of all of us, you know, keeping tabs on her and everything else. And I always make sure she has her vodka and Reuben sandwiches, and so I'm
ah,
good about that. But you know, but she had an entire structure around her. So she had her church, she had her bridge club, she
yeah,
had a book club. I would always get her, you know, a package of tickets to the baseball game for her and a friend. So they
yeah.
would all take she'd take the Metro Link down
Oh
there,
my gosh.
even in her 90s, and go down and watch the ball game and everything else. So she had all those things, and those things have been cut off from her.
Oh my God.
Thank goodness that she has the great kind of disposition that she does,
Yeah.
uh, the excellent constitution that she does in her heart to get past that. But I wonder about other people who, when separated from those normal routines,
Oh my gosh.
are being harmed by it. And you can go from the 92-year-old to the 8-year-old. I think it's a very stressful time. for them. And I think mostly it's unnecessary. So that's the worst part of it, is that we're doing this, and so much of it is actually unnecessary.
Right.
Disemploying people, separating people from their faiths, of their churches.
Oh,
It's a lot of it is unnecessary.
you know what? That's been the hardest thing for me. As a practicing Catholic, I love to go to mass every day. And it doesn't matter where I'm at. I've got a parish in Chicago. I've got a parish in St. Louis. And I love my priests and I love my fellow parishioners. And the times this year, this feels really sinful to me, but the times this year when I have gone to mass, I have gotten so furious. You got to sign in because we're tracking you. You got to do the hand wash. No, thank you. You got to have your mask up. You walk in, there's not holy water. The sacraments are just stripped. I can't do it. I sit there and I have to actually go into confession while I'm sitting in the pew because I'm thinking how mad I am.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, oh, I mean, do we have confession right now? Probably you have to call. I just can't abide the game that's been played against humanity. And I've walked around my home, Jamie, many days, really crying and saying, what has happened to my country? What has happened to my fellow Americans? Why are they burning the cities? Why are they destroying our monuments? Why are they killing one another? Why? And I look at this and I think this is really unfathomable. And what is our solution here? And right now, I don't know. Tell me, Jamie, you're way more knowledgeable about this historically than I am. But has there ever been a president-elect that walked in before the inauguration?
Oh no, there hasn't been, and I don't even know. I'm not quite sure we can even say he's president-elect yet.
Me neither.
Kamala Harris hasn't resigned her Senate seat, so we'll. They must be thinking something that they're not telling us. But who knows? I mean, I'm not. Nor am I a conspiracy theorist. What I am is a freedom-loving American who wants the integrity of our elections to stand. So, but I don't really know. I see a situation right now where it's funny. I talked about this a while back on the show when the panic-demic was first emerging, and it was interesting how America had a totally non-acceptable level of death when it came to COVID-19.
Yeah.
It was pretty clear that there were certain people who, when COVID-19 got them, they were going to die. That is the way it is. It's still a small, tiny, infinitesimal percent.
Yes, it is.
But it's interesting how politicians, everybody got out there and told us, and news media outlets and everybody else, which is the most disturbing thing, really,
Right.
celebrating the shutdown of entire cities.
Yeah.
Telling everybody it's okay. But we have, if we could do just, and they always say, if we can do just one thing, if we can save just one life through this, then it's all worth it.
Yeah.
And it sounds callous to some people, but actually it's not worth it. It's
right.
And oddly enough, in this country, we also have acceptable levels of death that are alarming. Look at where you are in Chicago. Right now, every weekend, there is an acceptable level of death in Chicago.
It blows my mind.
And I'm not saying that's a good thing, and we should just let people die. But I'm noting the hypocrisy of this idea that everybody has to be in a bubble and we have to kill off an entire economy because of it, when we have an acceptable level of death in our inner cities, for instance, of our fellow human beings who are literally murdering each other. And we have, and the only person actually who has lifted a finger to try to allay that by giving minorities a bigger stake in the economy and a better one is, go figure, Donald J. Trump, who's called a racist and this or that and that. I know that the Democrats there haven't done anything about it. And so it's weird to have all these people talking about how we have to do everything we can to save a life, but they don't talk about that. Not even Black Lives Matter talks about that.
Right.
Cities. It's crazy.
I agree 100%. It's been very bewildering to me. You know, one of my associates has said he was consulted by whoever when Black Lives Matter was being put together, and they presented him with that slogan, Black Lives Matter. And as a strong Black male, he said, put a comma after it and say also. Because what you're saying is definitive. Well, wait a second. But then you're going to shoot people who say all lives matter. There was, you know, there are so many different scenarios where people are injuring one another, and I just don't get it. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist either, but I am looking at this logically, as logical as I can be, sitting in the middle of this, right? And I'm thinking, I've done a bunch of things to boost my immune system and make sure that I stay healthy. And I work a lot, but I work out of my home. I can go and lay down or take a walk and, you know, just free my mind. But I look at this and I think to myself, there are so many people who are getting anti-anxiety med, antidepressant meds, drinking, ultimately committing suicide. Suicide rates are off the charts. And somehow no one's talking about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting more calls from people in distress. I don't know what to do. And they're not even relating it to 2020. They're just saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not doing well in school. I'm having trouble at home. I mean, I've got kids in college whose parents have got me helping them with their stress. And I'm saying to these kids, you know, they're 20. And I'm saying, I need for you to understand something. It's the context within which you're living. I've got a few years on you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you. And their reaction to me is, most of these are Zoom calls. They look at me and they go, oh, thank you. No one said that. And I'm thinking, you know, we all grow up thinking the way that we're living is a reality.
Yeah.
Well, it is, but this reality is perverse.
Yeah.
What's the solution, Jamie?
Well, you know, here's what I think. Here's the good news about all this, and I think that I don't know whether obviously you have, but you know, like when you go on vacation, or sometimes you just turn off all of your news, you turn off
I
TV.
do.
But imagine a life where you don't have the news. And imagine, I would love to do an experiment where everything is blacked out. Now, again, I'm a truth seeker. I don't want to just shut people up or do whatever. And I'm also not an ostrich. I don't keep my head in the sand.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think that we have to start to go after, even as we talk about being influencers ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to start going after the bad influences.
Yes.
And the bad influences are our news media, some of our tyrants in politics, some of the people who have been getting away with a kind of virtual murder of us over the past 25, 30 years by not caring about us, by negotiating our jobs and our economies away, by getting us into wars that we shouldn't belong, or that we'd never belonged in. And that's one of the reasons why President Trump was such a breath of fresh air, and why he caused so much anxiety among people. I think it was mainly he caused anxiety among people in the press and others who were no longer in control.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that for the first time in my even adult life, when President Trump was elected, I finally felt like real people were in control. I finally felt like we had fully separated from the political structure that has basically engaged in pitting us against each other all the time.
Yeah.
It's so weird because President Trump was complete, and it might be just my mindset. He was just completely antithetical to this person he was portrayed as, which was a divider. He wasn't a divider. He divided a lot of people from their power. He divided the news media from its power the minute he started tweeting. But history had repeated itself by then. Even when Franklin Roosevelt did his fireside chats, the news media hated it when he did that, because he was going directly to the people, and people didn't like that. So these political structures all worked for the next 4 years to try to grab all that power back, no matter what kind of damage they were going to do to us. Moving on, we have to start to question these institutions and these people, and question these people who actually are bad influences on us. They are bad for our lives. I mean, if you notice, and you can go out on the street of Chicago, or I can go out on the street of St. Louis, and you realize people are getting along just fine. People are, unfortunately what's happened is we've all been masked up and everything else, and so we're running around with these frightened, I don't know whether you know the painting The Scream.
Oh yeah,
that one. We're all like,
exactly. I know.
One perpetual pose for Americans, and it's very natural. And but even I went to Walgreens the other night to get another extension cord for my Christmas lights, of course. I think I have now 150 extension cords, maybe. So I go there and I tell the clerk there, while I'm checking out, I go, you know what? I'm really happy that I actually, sometimes you can't tell when people are smiling, but I'm really happy I can tell you're smiling by your eyes. Just saying something nice to her. Tell she was, she was smiling, and it was so nice, because what happens is a lot of people put that mask on, and automatically they get a blank look on their face. I don't know why that happens. I think what happens is when you get this sense that no one can see your mouth, you just become a robot at that point. I don't know. But people are getting along. People, with the exception of all the next door apps and all those people, that's been a problem for us. But again, keep in mind why that is. And why that is because our political structure, our politicians, the people who are making money off the panic, the people who are making money off of our divisions racially and otherwise, the people who are gaining power off of them. The news media has classically always gained its power through telling us how chaotic and divided we are, and how racist and troubled and everything else we are. And so if we tend to start to work to remove those influences from our sphere and start to rely on each other a little bit more, and realize that we need to, kind of take our head out of our phone in the elevator for once, or say something nice to somebody. It really is actually very easy. And because what's happened is, even to your point, things that we've always relied on so much have been stripped away from us. Sometimes it's our families. And I'm talking about in terms of, suddenly you've got people who won't let their own mothers see their babies because their mother doesn't wear a mask or whatever, or and so the things that we've relied on for our peace, for kids, it's been schools. Their schools. They're going to school and seeing their friends, whatever. Their athletics. For us, it's been our churches. Or even, for that matter, our families, or just even getting a cup of ice, a soda at the convenience store that now is banned in St. Louis County. All these things that we actually have found comfort in have been stripped away from us. It's crazy that we allow the political structure to get that far into our lives, and that far into our everyday lives. It's astounding to me. But they've done it. Just when you thought there's no way you could permeate that personal existence that we've had with each other and with our churches, our schools, our people, our neighbors, they did. And so we have to find a way to get that part of it back.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am all about getting that part of it back and more. And I'll tell you the thing that really has got me on the edge of my seat right now and that is this vaccine. I mean, to tell you in droves, nearly everybody I know is saying, oh, I can't wait for the vaccine. Oh, when the vaccine comes, I'm going to be first in line. I'm getting it. And I'm thinking, never, ever. Uh, First of all, vaccines are dangerous. Kids did get vaccines, me included. I got the mark on my right upper arm to demonstrate my legacy of vaccines. You always get a fever, you always feel crappy because they're injecting you with what it is that you're supposed to build the antibodies of. But here's the problem. This was a rush job on the vaccination. This is one of the companies that came out with a vaccine.
Pfizer.
No,
Oh.
it's one of the ones that President Trump really Minerva or
Moderna.
huh?
Moderna.
Moderna. It's the first time they've ever created a vaccine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, when you look at the physicians and the chemists who have analyzed the contents, it's pretty disgusting. And if this is the decoy for furthering intimidation and control of the people, then I am really uncomfortable, because I've got friends, you know, physicians in particular, who are saying, no way, I am not letting my patients take it. You know, we've already got a line of defense against this if it's mandatory. What the hell? Are you kidding me? You can tell people what to do mandatorily with
Well,
their bodies, or you can't travel, or you can't go into public establishments.
This is where again we need. First of all, Pfizer's in the UK, they've already issued warnings that if you have a significant allergy, you can wind up in anaphylactic shock.
Right.
And I have my kids vaccinated, but my 13-year-old is allergic to pine, has allergies, and I don't want her to take the vaccine and go into anaphylactic shock right now, and where they're giving them, they all have resuscitation machines in the office where they're doing it. But this is where, Doctor, where we need our own structures to step up, and unfortunately they have failed us.
They have.
There's not a church in this country that should be willingly shutting down. There's not a restaurant in this country that should be willingly shutting down. There's not a corporation in this country that should be willingly touting the wonderfulness of staying at home and inside. So what would happen is we've lost those people. And when it comes to the vaccine, it's just going to be another formulation of the mask, because what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to go to work, get a job. They're going to have the vaccine available in the conference room for 4 hours. The human resources Karen is going to send you a message via your email saying, hey, we're giving it to, you know, there's going to be a level of coercion, society coercion. There's going to be the mask is right now visible. As you can tell, people aren't wearing it. Just wait until you have to be asked if you've had the vaccine. Wait until an airline will not let you fly without it. Wait till TSA checks you before you even get on an airplane if you haven't had it yet. And so it's going to be basically a level of coercion that's going to be going on, even though we don't know it to be effective. Right. And we certainly don't know it to be safe, but that's going to be the other level of coercion. That's going to be the other value check that's being made right now as we live. That's why our structures, our community structures, ought to be able to withstand this. The problem is, and I have no problem with lawyers, but you know, the problem is the attorneys are all going to tell the airlines and the corporations and the schools and the restaurants and everything else that if your people are not vaccinated and someone gets COVID-19 and they've been to your place, they will sue you.
Yeah.
And so at that point, then usually what happens, you mention a lawsuit and all bets are off, and people will do anything to avoid litigation. Even though you could never prove somebody got COVID-19, you could never prove where they got it.
Yeah, exactly.
But they're still going to be warned about it, and it's going to flip everybody out, and they're going to go into some kind of panic over the thing.
You know, I thought it was really, really devastating here in the United States. But when I talked to my business associates and friends in other parts of the world. Huh. There's other parts of the world. I mean, even just in Europe and in Austria and in Germany and in France and Italy, where it's even worse. I mean, a friend of mine, a Frenchman, was leaving France and going to Italy because they were coming and knocking on the door saying, you know, we need to sign you up to get the vaccination. It's going to be mandatory. And so he goes to Italy, and then he goes to Italy, and it's like, they're crazy here too. So he's going to Brazil. I said, I thought you left Brazil because it was crazy down there. He said, well, I got to keep moving around because I'm not consenting to what I don't believe in. And by the way, my paradigm on healthcare and medicine is completely out of the paradigm of typical society and American standards. I mean, I don't do what most Americans do. And I'm 64 years old. I don't have any diagnoses. I don't have any
90
illnesses.
seconds.
Oh, we're down to 90 seconds. No way.
They put a little timer on there and everything, huh?
Oh my gosh. All right, Jamie.
Yes.
I think we need to be on here every day.
We'll have the world's problem solved by then.
All right. So, friends, I hope you loved this. I absolutely was lit on fire with Jamie Allman here. Jamie, I am so grateful to you for being on here with me. You know, we're co-hosting. We got to keep doing it.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be with you. It's been so much fun. And I love talking to all the people out there and eventually learning from them too. I'm sure we will. We'll get some feedback on this, I'm sure. So it's been fun.
Till next time, this is Dr. Deb Carlin with my co-host, Jamie Allman.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Love it.